Hello guys, welcome to episode 44 of the Switch Indie Fix podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything indie on the Nintendo Switch. It is currently the 16th of February here in Vienna on a nice clear blue skied Sunday, looking very, very appealing to go outside today. But first I'm going to record this podcast because yes, I love talking about indie games, especially ones on the Nintendo Switch. So in this week's podcast, we'll be talking about two new games coming from Concerned Ape, aka the developer of Stardew Valley. We'll also be talking about more Cuphead content coming to Super Smash Bros. And I'll be giving my review of Cosmic Star Heroine. But first, just a gentle reminder, guys, that we do need your questions. If you have any Nintendo or indie game related questions and want them read out on the show, head over to switchindiefix.com/SIF podcast. Plus, if you're looking for a fun gaming community to join, why not check out the SIF Discord server? Just head over to switchindiefix.com/Discord to join. And by the way, guys, if you do hear a cat meowing in the background, it's because we are cat sitting a cat for a friend, and he is here looking at me right now. So yeah, that's why there's a cat might meow during the show. But as always, right now there is no cat meowing, so we're going to start with our first section of the show, which is the news. And this week we have only, I believe, 3 items on the list. That's half a baker's dozen, but they are quite meaty items. Plus, I am adding in an extra new addition to the news, which we'll get into later. But first, let's start off with the main story, which is Stardew Valley Dev is working on 2 new projects. So, with his constant updates to popular farming sim Stardew Valley, developer Eric Barone, aka Concerned Ape, is somehow finding time to work on 2 new gaming projects. Barone responded to a fan on Twitter when asked if he was making another game in the Stardew Valley universe. The indie dev said, "Yes, I'm actually working on a couple of new projects. One takes place in the world of Stardew Valley, but it's not a farming game. The other, I'm not 100% sure about the world yet, but it will tie into Stardew Valley in some way." So, yeah, obviously this is kind of big news, but it's been announced in a very small way with Barone just responding to a fan on Twitter. But yeah, he kind of had the foresight to expect that this might blow up, so he went on to explain, "I see this blowing up, and there are articles coming out, etc. All I ask is please do not get too hyped at this stage. I want to avoid too much hype or speculation. I just like to make whatever game comes naturally to me without too much pressure or expectation. I'm not setting out to make the next indie smash hit. I just want to make another game that I enjoyed and I am happy with, and to share some of my art and ideas with the world. If it becomes popular, I will be happy, but it's not my focus." So he's basically saying that maybe we should curb our expectations. But I think this is great news for indie game fans and Stardew Valley fans. And I don't know, it's a difficult situation to be in as him as a dev, because he has this game that is like, I think last time on the last podcast we reported that it sold over 10 million units. It's critically loved. It's adored by, I don't know, over 10 million people. Or it's at least sold 10 million copies. So it is a huge game, and it's still an indie game, and it's incredible to think that it's just made by one guy. But I don't know if he can, I understand why he's telling people to curve their expectations, but it's just one of those things, like when you are so successful and you have been kind of working on a game for so long, people do want to see the next big thing. And I think it's difficult for him because people are going to be hyped, and we're reporting about it now because it is big news. And if he's just working on these 2 games by himself, it's one of those things, I guess, where if you're you're working in your office by yourself on 2 different games, it might be hard to kind of it might be hard to actually read how much people want a new game from you, because you have been working on your original one so long. But yeah, later on then Barone had some talks with IGM, and he went into a little bit more detail about the new projects, saying that they will both be top-down 2D pixel art games in the vein of Stardew Valley, of course. The first is an ambitious project which Barone is approaching with the goal to surpass the quality of every aspect compared to Stardew Valley. The second is being made as just a little thing to have fun with. So yeah, it looks like the main project is this first one. And going on there, talking about not curving expectations and hype, and then saying that it's going to surpass the quality of every aspect of Stardew Valley kind of seems a bit contradictory to me. Because you're saying, oh yeah, don't get excited about it, but it's going to be better in every way than Stardew Valley. So yeah, it's like I said, it's a bit. I think for him, it's a very difficult situation to be in, to balance his renown and his name and this new game compared to like fans just have to remember that he is a one-man team and he's doing this all by himself. So yeah, it got me thinking, what could the games be? For me, I'd love to see a game about the rise of the Amazon-like corporation in Stardew Valley. Like, I can't remember the name of them, but it's the one where your character starts off in at the start of the game working in like a cubicle for this huge corporation. And I'd love like a game about maybe something to do, I don't know, like maybe like an RPG where you're in this corporation, or you're like the reason why this corporation became so powerful in this world. I think that would be kind of cool. And yeah, the second game, I'm not sure. I guess maybe we won't even see what it is. Like, if it's just a thing to have fun with, and maybe he's just prototyping something and playing around with it and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't work, then he just scraps it and focuses on the first one. But yeah, it got me thinking, what would you like concerned the next game to be? Let me know on Twitter @SwitchIndieFix. So story number 2 is more Cuphead content is coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. They're all here, yes, not just AAA properties, but indies too. A Cuphead outfit has already been added to Super Smash Bros., but now you can also earn some Cuphead spirits too. The Cuphead Spirit event starts on Valentine's Day, so it's starting on Friday, and lasts for 5 days, in which you'll be able to unlock Cuphead, Mugman, King Dice, and the Devil himself. It's a cool little nod to indie games in the biggest and best collab game ever. It's cool to see more Cuphead, more indie games in general being added to Super Smash Bros. I guess it's now become like a way of validation for indie games, that if they're getting into Super Smash Bros. When before it was only originally like Nintendo properties and then huge AAA properties, and now Ultimate has kind of branched out to pretty much any game property, which is very exciting for Smash fans. I'm not the biggest Smash fan. I do have Ultimate, but I've not really played it that often. But nevertheless, it's kind of cool to see indie games and indie devs been included in this huge like collaboration in the gaming world. It also got me thinking, what do we think, or what do I think the next indie game collab could be? Personally, I think it's going to be with Hollow Knight. I think like Hollow Knight is up on that echelon of we've seen Shovel Knight, we've seen Undertale, now Cuphead. I think Hollow Knight is up there as like a top tier indie game on the Switch. I also think Hollow Knight as a character is very iconic. Like, whenever I follow, I think the hashtag Metroidvania hashtag on Instagram, and I'd say like 7 out of 10 posts on that Metroidvania hashtag are all about Hollow Knight. So I think he kind of holds that like recognizability that I think Smash characters have to have as well, because especially indie ones, like it's ones that people who maybe they only do play Nintendo games, or maybe they only just play Smash. Like, I think even still they have this. They know who Cupman is. They know who Cuphead is. They know who Shovel Knight is. They know who Sans is. And I think Hollow Knight is also up there where people recognize him. But yeah, let me know who you think the next indie inclusion will be in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And our final story, but very hefty story, is Dead Cells: The Bad DLC. The Bad Seed DLC is out now. So, hugely popular roguelike Metroidvania, Dead Cells has just gotten its 17th update and newest piece of DLC, The Bad Seed. 17th update, that's crazy, but it's cool to see. The new piece of content costs $4.99. That's just for the DLC, not for the update, obviously. And as an additional pass for the player to take in the game, as developers Motion Twins explains. With 2 new biomes inhabited by their own distinctive bestiary, the Arboretum, a lush paradise to deceivingly adorable creatures, and the swamp, where an overgrown arboreal settlement inhabited by ambushing blow gunners and spear wielders is your only escape from the gargantuan purple ticks that reign uncontested on the ground. Blech. God, that was a long Hang on. That's all one sentence. Yeah, that whole paragraph is one sentence, yeah. Triumphing over the numerous perils means you will be rewarded with a conceptually unique armory, including the first double slot weapon, as well as a very dedicated and loyal mushroom companion. Of course, vengeance visited upon the monsters and conquering the challenging new biomes that once slowed you down is its own reward, but a few new weapons never hurt anybody. So yeah, I think this is also great to see that the Dead Cells is still going strong. Like, if you don't know, it was originally on like Steam Greenlight, I think, or whatever the Steam Early Access page is now called. It got very popular on there because it was, you know, a well polished game for a game that was still in beta or in alpha or whatever it was. And then it came to Steam and then Switch, I think 2 years ago. And yeah, the Motion Twin just keep adding to it. They keep optimizing it. They keep improving it, and yeah, bringing DLC to keep it interesting for fans that are still into the game. Of course, it's a roguelike game, so each new run is unique where you don't know which weapons you're gonna get. So, you know, there are people still playing Dead Cells because it just has that loop that is never ending. So it's nice to see that new weapons, a few new biomes will keep things spicy, keep things interesting, and that you get a little pet is also kind of cute. But yeah, the next kind of half of this story is that if you are a massive Dead Cells fan, or you have been holding out for a great Dead Cells Special Edition, now is your chance with the Dead Cells Prisoners Edition. So the collection is brought to you by, it's brought to you by Signature Edition, and includes a 22cm figurine of the prisoner himself, a physical copy of the game, a download code for the new Bad Seed DLC, a 7-inch orange vinyl, pins, stickers, a certificate, a print, keyring, and an art book. And yeah, it kind of goes on. This is like a massive special edition, and it looks really, really cool, especially the statue. The Prisoners Edition will cost $109.99, and pre-orders are open on the Signature Edition website. Order quickly because there's only 10,000 editions worldwide, and if you're one of the first 500 people to pre-order, you'll also get a special collector's coin. So yeah, again, like I kind of said with Hollow Knight, I feel like Dead Cells is also one of those indie games on the Switch that is like top tier, recognizable, and I think it's shown in this in this pre-order, in this special edition, because it is a massive special edition. If you are interested in physical games, you should definitely go over to Signature Edition's website and check it out. Just have a look at it because there's so much stuff there. Yeah, it's kind of pricey, but I know people that have put tons and tons of hours into this game, and I think it's like a nice way to kind of give back even more to the developers, because like we said earlier, they've had 17 updates that they've put to this game, and I'm pretty sure that all 17 were free, and then obviously they have the DLC on top too. So yeah, if you are a big fan, or you have just been waiting for a really cool physical edition to come out, now is your chance. So yeah, that was our 3 main news stories. Now we're going to go on to our news games of note, which, if you don't know, is basically our the games of note that have been announced for the Switch within the last week or so. So the first one, Madcap multiplayer game Chapu, or Chapao, I think, or Chapu, is coming to Nintendo Switch later this year. This is a really cool looking game where you play as like a different variants of hats, and you have to kind of like I don't know, from the video it seems like there's a kind of like the floor is lava feel to it, where you have to bounce around from different people's heads and different items without touching the floor. I believe it's made in it's playable in 4-player couch co-op, and it's made in Austria, which is pretty cool. So yeah, definitely one on my watch list. The next game, P-Cube announces Arcade Spirits is coming to consoles on May the 1st. Tiny Build announces Totally Reliable Delivery Service is coming to all platforms on April 1st. Totally Reliable Delivery Service is kind of like one of these funny physics games where kind of like Gang Beasts or Human Fall Flat, where you have to deliver parcels around the map, but it's incredibly difficult to move, and the physics are all kind of crazy. So it makes it very difficult. Paper Castle Games sadly announced that their game Under Hero will be delayed until February 27th due to reasons beyond our control. The game was meant to come out on February 13th, I believe. This is one I can't wait to play. I'm very excited to play it. It's kind of like a 2D pixel art Metroidvania with kind of like real-time battle mechanics, kind of like turn-based battle mechanics. Basically, the idea of the game is that you are the underhero, so you are basically a minion of an evil villain who is sent to slow down the hero who is coming to defeat the villain. You accidentally manage to defeat the hero, and the villain sends you on the mission to kind of, be a bad guy. And as you go on this mission, you actually turn into the hero. So it's like a very unusual concept, has really beautiful art. So if it sounds interesting, it comes out on February the 27th. Bloodroots is coming to Switch on February 28th, which Dastridius is very excited about. It's if you don't know what Bloodroots is, it's kind of a top-down or asymmetrical, I don't know, I guess like puzzle game. Like you basically enter like arenas where you have to get from one side of the arena to other, and between you and your goal is enemies. And you have to make your way across the arena, kill all the enemies, but you can use different items and different, just like different environmental pieces to do that. So it's almost like a puzzle game because, I think you get hit. If you get hit once or twice, you die. So it's kind of like, you have to look at the enemy's layout, you have to look at your items and think, okay, I'm going to take this, use this, throw it at him, and then I'm going to roll on this barrel to the next guy, jump up onto this ledge. It's a very like interesting kind of hack and slash game meets puzzler, and it looks very like well polished, really beautiful looking game as well. And it's coming out at the end of the month. And finally, for our last game of note is Sexy Senior Dating Sim Later Daters gets announced for April this year. So, as I kind of mentioned before, I am adding a new sub section to the news, and this subsection is called Physical Therapy. So it's a new section that is music to the ears of all you Switch physical collectors out there, because I kind of, the way the news used to work was like any news would make it into a story. So you would get basically, a lot of these, and that's also why I made like news game of note, because I wanted kind of like new announcements, game announcements, or new release announcements and physical editions to kind of have their own little thing, because I didn't want to go into them too much. And I wanted the main stories to be kind of a bit more meaty. So, so I thought, why not make them both into their own thing? Physical Therapy is for all you #SwitchCorps fans that love physical editions. And this week we have quite a few new ones that have been announced. So the first one is Jet Set Radio Like Hover is getting a physical edition from PM Studios. The game will cost $29.99, but if you pre-order, you can save yourself $5, bringing the price down to, of course, $24.99. There's a total of 5,000 units worldwide, and pre-orders can only be made on the PM Studios website. The next one up is Physical Edition number 27 for Super Rare Games, which was announced earlier this week, and it's the prestigious World of Goo. The game was renowned back on the Wii, receiving a 10 out of 10 from Nintendo Life, and it will be Super Rare Games' first ever Steelbook edition. So the standard edition of the game will cost you $29.99, and the Steelbook edition will cost you $47.99. Pre-orders open on February 20th, and the run is limited to 6,000 units. You can pre-order on Super Rare Games' website, which I guess is superraregames.com. And finally, you're getting kind of two for the price of one here. Two of my favorite indie game RPGs are getting a physical release together. Cat Quest and Cat Quest 2 are getting bundled together in the Pawsome pack. The bundle will cost around £24.99 and is expected to come out on May 22nd, with pre-orders already been live on Game in the UK and Amazon in the US. This one was kind of leaked by a lot of retailers in the UK last week. They put up kind of, on their websites that this game was coming, and that's where we got the release date from. So that's why I said it's expected to come out on May 22nd. But yeah, Cat Quest 1 and Cat Quest 2 are both really great games, very fun RPGs. If you go to the switchindiefix.com, they're both, I review both of them there. And like I said, they're very great games, and you can get them both on one card or one cartridge on May 22nd. So yeah, so that was the news for this week. Let me know again what you would like the new kind of Concerned Imp game to be about, and who you're going to think is which indie game you think might be in Super Smash Bros. Next. And I just want to remind you before we move on to section 2 that this week's episode of the Switch Indie Fix podcast is brought to you by the Switch Indie Fix Discord server. If you're looking for a fun community to join and are interested in indie games and Nintendo, or I guess gaming culture in general, it's a great place to hang out. We are having monthly developer AMAs on there. Last week we had one with the developers from Turnfollow who developed the game Wide Ocean Big Jacket. A really, really cool game and really nice guys on there. So if you do want to chat to real developers and you want to chat to us, come and say hello by going to switchindiefix.com/Discord. So section 2 this week is going to be our, it's as always is our conversation portion, but it's going to be my review of Cosmic Star Heroine. So I don't know if I've really talked about it yet, but my kind of goal for the site this year was to kind of, and it's going to sound very contradictory when I talk about this, but I was kind of like, I want to kind of like leave games that are in the past. Like, a lot of people's New Year's resolution for gaming is, get through the backlog. My resolution this year was kind of like to be like, okay, those games, they've been out. I've heard about them. I know if they're usually good or bad. And when it comes to the website, they've already been reviewed. So for the website, it's usually like, if I'm going to review, I don't know, a game that came out in November last year, it's kind of like it would have to really be because I really want to play it, because or because one of the reviewers really wants to play it, because otherwise it just doesn't really get any traffic, because people have already read the reviews, they've already usually bought the games. The only time it would really get any traffic is if that game goes on sale. So for the site, I was like, I want to be very proactive. I want to make sure that we are hitting embargoes this year, which has already turned out to be quite difficult. But I want to try and get reviews out as soon as I can for games that are new. So the way I'm doing that is actually like making sure I'm sharing out, applying for codes, sharing them out to my reviewers so that they have enough time to review the games. Obviously, like, life gets in the way, and also when you work with developers and publishers, it can also come down to there are like we saw with Under Hero, there are circumstances that can't be controlled, which means sometimes codes come out late or they come out on the day of release. So obviously you can't get the review out for when the game is released. Nevertheless, it means that because I've been sharing out the codes, that I've actually had some personal time to play a game, to play games, and I basically didn't really have anything new to play because I'd already given out all the codes to the reviewers. Like, I played, what did I recently? I reviewed Milo's Quest, which came out like last week or the week before, because it was like a short game. And before that, I did Sir Eats a Lot, and and I've been also been playing some games from my backlog, which is ironic because it's something I said that I didn't want to do. And one of those games has been Cosmic Star Heroine, which is a game I heard about a long time ago. I remember putting out a tweet about, like, basically saying I really want to play an old school JRPG, but I don't have the time to play one. And someone suggested, you should try Cosmic Star Heroine because it's inspired by 90s JRPGs. So if you think about like Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger, it's inspired by those games, but it's like a lot easier to understand and a lot shorter. So I ended up picking up the game on sale. I think it was sometime last year, and I got it for about €3. Let's get into the review. So the story is based around Alyssa, who is a top spy in the Agency of Peace and Intelligence. After saving the world for the 20th time, Alyssa and her colleague Dave discover that everything may not be as it seems in the API, and decide to be good spies and investigate. They discover there is an evil plan being conducted within the API and barely manage to escape with their lives. So the story is basically you're in this spy agency. You discover that maybe someone within the agency isn't who they seem and has these ulterior motives. And it's based in like a sci-fi world. You're basically there's spaceships and like technology that we don't have currently, so it's very futuristic, very sci-fi, it's like an old school RPG, but without all the fat attached. So it's much more streamlined than other JRPGs, especially older ones I've tried to play, and the systems are really easy to understand and get your head around. So when it comes to combat, it's turn-based combat. with a team of 4, each of the team members has 8 moves, which can be chosen from a larger pool of moves. The only real that's very easy to understand. You basically have these moves. There's also kind of elemental moves. So enemies, when you attack enemies, they will tell you which element they are weak against. Some enemies might not be weak against anything. There are also robotic enemies, organic enemies, and I think they're called spectral enemies. And they also have moves that they are weak against or strong against. So it has a little bit of I wouldn't even say rock, paper, scissors, but it kind of tells you, okay, if you have this move, you should use it against this enemy because they're weak against it. And obviously, if they're weak against a different element, they will take more damage. So that's kind of the very basic. Then there's also this thing called style, which is very similar. Well, I guess it's kind of similar to the limit system of Final Fantasy VII. So it basically builds up over time after different moves, and when it's full, you use it. It's used automatically. But when it's full, the next move will basically do more damage or will have a stronger effect if it's a buff. So it's interesting because you can also some characters can share style or steal style, so it's kind of very interesting balancing the style, and each character's style level is different. So some it might only take 2 moves for them to use their style, or it could take 5 for some enemies. For some characters. So yeah, there is a little bit of complexity to the combat system. But it's not too much to the point where you're okay, I'm in menus and I'm moving people around and I'm mid-maxing everything. It's kind of, like I said, very easy to get your head around. The characters themselves I thought were really well written. The planets are very varied and interesting, and so are the different alien races in the game. It wasn't I don't know, a typical sci-fi game where you have humans and then you have, I don't know, some character that looks like a human but is green. I felt like the aliens were really, really well designed, very different from each other, and also the planets too. You have this ant kind of race that are they have a lot of implants and are very robotic. Then there's also this race that is basically they live their life, but when they die they come back as ghosts, and then they have to live inside these special suits that because they're ghosts. Which was really interesting too. And then there's also this bounty hunter that follows you around, and he reminded me a little bit of what was he called, the robot from the Power Rangers, the one with the UFO head. Was he called UFO? Yeah, anyway, he kind of looks a bit like him but mixed with the Predator. So the designs and just the characters themselves looked really interesting, and the worlds did too. The art style, I don't know if I said it, is like I said, Final Fantasy VI. It's all pixel art. You go into different areas, and then there's also a world map which is zoomed out. So yeah, it's a very, very beautiful game, very well designed. The only thing is, I felt the story was a little bit kind of so-so. When you set off, it kind of gets interesting, but then very predictable. And then at the end, there's a little bit of a twist where you're oh, okay, right, I guess that's okay. But the thing that makes the story the story so kind of, interesting is definitely the characters and the way they're written and the way they interact with each other. And it was very nice just kind of getting to know them. Also, the way that they work in combat is very. Is kind of, it's they're very unique, and their moves and how they're used are also very unique. There isn't really a class system here. Each of the characters is a different, I don't know, they have a different skill, or they basically Alyssa, she has a spear and can use water moves. Dave is kind of a hacker, and he uses electricity and a lot of buffs. And then there's I've forgotten her name, but there's the gunmancy woman who basically is a mage that uses guns as her magic. And then there's the ant guy who he uses moves that last over different turns. So they are very varied, and it makes really like choosing your team difficult, because they all have really, a lot of them have good pros and a lot of them have like cons as well. So it's like, okay, I'm trying to find the balance of which characters I should use together, because they kind of like quasi combo. Like one of the combos I used a lot. Well, it's not really a combo, but I was fighting a lot of enemies that are weak to fire, and the gunmancy, I think she's called Chan. She uses fire. So what I would do is I would use Alyssa to buff her and like put her damage up. Then I would use Chan's move to basically so that her next move attacks every single enemies. Then I would use her, on the next move I would use her fire move, and it would kill all the enemies. So it's like little things like that make make the character create like team build kind of interesting, and you can use them together to help out. But yeah, that's kind of the combat and the characters. I mostly streamlined the game, and it took me about 11 hours on the normal difficulty. For me, like I said, it was perfect because I wanted to play an old school JRPG, but didn't really want it to take 100 hours. However, if you are one of those people that loves getting into RPGs and loves getting into the world and loves just pouring hours and hours into it, you can do so with Cosmic Star Heroine. Like, I don't think it's going to go to 100 hours, but I think you probably could get it to at least 15, maybe 20 if you wanted to, because there are lots and lots of items to find in the game. That was one of my favorite things to do, was kind of explore every corner and try and find all the items, and because there are so many characters, there's obviously a lot of items that they can use. Plus there are side quests from your characters, so if you want to get to know them a little bit better, you can help them out by doing side quests, and that obviously gives you more XP and more chance of items and stuff like that. And plus there are little extra missions that just pop up as you are exploring the world. Like there's one where you're at a fair and you have to do a treasure hunt, and if you find a treasure, you get like a weapon upgrade. But yeah, it's cool that all these side quests are in the game, but it was very hard to follow exactly what they were and where you were supposed to go. Like, I think the game would have really benefited if there was kind of like a quest tracker. Because I tried doing one side quest for a character called Sue, who basically said his son had been captured by these rebels or something, and he was being held on this planet in the southwest of this town. So I was like, okay. I went to the town, went southwest, went in every like dungeon there was there, couldn't find his son. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go back to him and ask him again, because there were also no markers on the map to where you should go. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go back and ask him again. And then basically the dialogue that I got then was just basically his normal dialogue of like, oh yeah, that was close, the last mission was close, and I couldn't get him to tell me again where his son was, and there was no kind of confirmation that I'd actually saved his son, because I was expecting to walk into a cave and there'd be like a sprite there of a kid being held by rebels, and I didn't really come across anything like that, even though I'd been into everything that was southwest of where he said I should go. So yeah, it would have been kind of nice to be like, just go through a diary or something and be like, okay, yeah, remember where I'm meant to go. Maybe if a marker would be on the map for the side quest, that would also be cool, because for the main story, you didn't really need to. You didn't really need to know where to go. Like, the game was designed well enough that it kind of pushed you in the right direction all the time and told you exactly where you needed to go. But yeah, for the side quest, I think it would have helped a little bit if they'd given it kind of held your hand a bit more and were like, yeah, you should go here, or at least tell you where what missions you had or what missions were available. But like I said, for me, I just wanted to get through the story. And the story, like I said, I enjoyed. Overall, as I was saying, like, I didn't find the game very difficult. I was playing on the regular level, and you can put it up, make it harder if you want to. I think there was 2 levels above normal. So if you are like a seasoned JRPG player, then you might want to put it on a high level, and I did. Again, like I said, once you kind of work out how some combos can work, and you get good at managing your style, battles become pretty similar. Also, I think I think nearly every character, they have an ability for like a heal, and then later on you also get a lot of characters that have an ability to revive. So it kind of gets you into the loop of like, well, you know, my characters are pretty spongy, so I can just kind of like it feels like there's no consequence to the battle. You're just like, yeah, they can hit me, it's fine, I can revive them or I can heal them, and you kind of just don't really care about taking damage, which hasn't really helped me in the next game that I've been playing, which I'll talk about later, because I'm still in that mindset now, and in this next game, you really can't play like that. But yeah, so it kind of got to the point where I think I died once, or had to retry a battle once throughout pretty much the whole game. That is until like the last hour, where there is like a very steep difficulty curve. And you basically then have to go on like a boss rush of beating 3 or 4 very difficult bosses in a row. The hardest one is a robot that when it attacks, it one hit KOs your character. So of course you have 4 characters, so you have about 4 or 5 moves to defeat it, and it has a lot of health. And it was really difficult because, you know, usually by this point, then my strategies weren't working, because I was like, right, well, you know, usually the battles that I was playing went on quite long because I was doing the similar strategy and I was taking damage, but my characters could last long enough, and it didn't matter how long the strategy was. So this one really had my like head, had me scratching my head of how can I beat it. And this is where I had to basically look into the different move pools that each character has. So yeah, when each character, I'd say they have probably about 15 to 20 moves each that you can choose from, but like I said, you're locked to 8, I believe. And it kind of got me thinking, right, well, I only have this amount of moves, so I need to do a lot of damage very quickly. And what I ended up doing was picking characters that could do attack buffs, and basically boost Alyssa's stats, so that, because it basically worked that after she only needed 2 turns for her style to kick in. So I basically had to buff her with other characters in the first turn, use her style, do a lot of damage, and then by then and also I had like quite a few revive moves equipped on the team. So it was like, yeah, I had to do a lot of damage, and which got about half of the boss's health down, and then, you know, manage my health, manage the revives, and keep doing plenty of damage to the enemy, which I eventually did. But that one took quite a while to beat. And it also actually made me use items in the battle. So yeah, there are items in the game with like slots that you can unlock. So I think I unlocked 4 slots, so I could use 4 items in the battle. But up until then, I never really used them, because I just didn't really need to. And there are also, I think they're called protocols, which are different attacks that each character has. But again, they were until the end, I never ever really needed to use it, because I felt like I was beating enemies fine. It wasn't until I think the second to last boss where I had 3 of my characters were dead, and basically what happens is like, if you've played Darkest Dungeon, you know, like when your enemy is on 0 health, they go onto like death's door, so they kind of hover on dying. So like if they take like one more hit, then they'll die. And there's a similar system in Cosmic Star Heroine, where if your style is high enough, if you go down to 0 health or below 0, your character will hang on for one last move. So what had basically happened was, I think the second to last boss had like 6,000 HP left, and my final character was on the death's door. All my other characters were dead, and I knew her moves wouldn't do 6,000 damage, because usually when you to get, I don't know, over like 2,000, usually an enemy has to be weak to your moves, or they have to like, what's the word? Or your style has to be full. So I had no style. I knew he wasn't weak to my moves, so I was kind of like in desperation, like, okay, what can I do? So then I looked at the protocols, and Chan had this protocol that said it did massive damage. So I was like, well, this is literally the last move I can take. I might as well use it. So I used it, and I think it did like about 100 HP more damage than I needed, and killed the boss. So I was like, oh, great, because and that was really the only time I used the protocol. So it's like I said, it's a very difficult curve that you get right at the end, and it honestly kind of came at the wrong time for me, because I was like, yeah, I'm kind of, I know I'm at the end, I know I've got like 2 more bosses to beat, and then there's a twist, and there's like a final boss you have to beat. But by then I was kind of ready to finish the game. And yeah, they were all difficult battles, which took a long time. And there was only the robot, which I had to retry a couple of times. But even so, like, the battle I had with the one where I said I used the protocol, like that was a long time to beat. And if I died, like, I would have been a bit annoyed to have to do it. And then yeah, the other 2 battles I also beat them on the first try, but they were difficult, and it also came down to like the wire. So yeah, so it kind of like added on like about an hour to the game, which I was kind of a bit like, yeah, it's kind of nice, but I was also ready to finish and thought I was close to finishing, and then it took like an extra hour. But yeah, I don't know, overall Cosmic Star Heroine is a fantastic game. Like, it looks gorgeous. Its world and characters are really, really interesting, and its battle system is easy enough for a JRPG novice like me to understand, which is exactly what I wanted from this game. I kind of felt like within the first hour, I was like, okay, this is a game that I want to play and I want to finish. And that's not always the case with RPGs. Like, RPGs, I do like them, but I know that they take a long time, and I just don't have enough time to play, 30 or 40 hours. But yeah, if you are like an RPG fan and you have any interest in Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, or like the Dragon Quest games, you should really check out Chrono Trigger. And like, I feel lucky that I got it on sale, but I do think this game is worth its asking price, and I think its asking price is about I think it's about €17. Let me just check. But yeah, whatever it's worth, like, I really think it's worth it, because it is a really great game, and I can't wait to see what the devs are working on next. If they're gonna so it's $14.99. So if they're working on another game within this universe, or like a sequel, because at the end it kind of leaves it open maybe for a sequel. But yeah, like I said, I will be doing a written review for this, so keep an eye out for it on Switch Indie Fix. And yeah, the second game that I kind of alluded to before that I just started it yesterday, is Darkest Dungeon, the Ancestral Edition. And yeah, Darkest Dungeon I played years ago back on Steam when it first came out. It's a game that, again, it's kind of like an old school JRPG, turn-based combat, but it's very, very difficult. And I'm kind of one of these people that doesn't handle difficulty well in some ways. And I think, like, especially in this case where, a lot of the time you invest a lot of energy and time into building up your characters, and then they can die very quickly. That's kind of the thing where I'm like, oh god, I don't want to go back and have to basically start from the beginning again, even though that's weird, because I do like roguelike games. And yeah, of course there is some like roguelike elements to Darkest Dungeon, but yeah, I'm basically playing this because of Mark, aka Smack Tweeter. Like, he's such a big fan, and he got back into it recently, so he kind of convinced me to play it, and I had a voucher for like an Austrian store, and I managed to get the game for like $10, like the physical edition. So yeah, I thought, why not take a try? Like, yeah, it's a great game. It looks amazing. It runs really well on the Switch. The only problem with it that I'm experiencing is the controls on the Switch. Like, I think they're just terrible controls. Because like, I think I've played probably about an hour, and I just couldn't work out how even like to look at my character's moves. And I was going the first 2 dungeons. I went into the dungeon without having all 4 of the character's moves like attached. So I went in, and like my what's she called? The woman the healing woman, like kind of the monk. She only had 1 move available, because I hadn't clicked on the other 3 because I didn't know how to do it. So yeah, so I think that's a really difficult part of it. Like, obviously it's a PC game that's been ported over, and yeah, using the buttons at least is pretty bad. Like, it's pretty annoying. But you can use the touchscreen, which is what I'm doing now, because it's just so much more intuitive and makes more sense. But yeah, I'm very early in the game. I've probably played in the past. I've probably played about 15 hours of Darkest Dungeon over different periods of when I've lost everything and then kind of rage quit and then gone back to it. On the Switch, I'm I'm enjoying it. It's nice to just sit down and play it on the couch and kind of get into it. And I'm not taking it too seriously. I'm just like, yeah, I just want to go in and try and get through the dungeons without anyone dying. I did have my first death already. One of my characters died, but they were level 0, so it's not so much of a big deal. But yeah, like I said about in Cosmic Star Heroine, I'm kind of, after playing that, I'm kind of in the mindset of like, oh yeah, my character's a spongy and it doesn't really matter. And that's really not the case in Darkest Dungeon. Like, obviously, your characters don't have that much health, and then when they take damage, it can be really hard because you have to get through the rest of the dungeon with the same health. Whereas in Cosmic Star Heroine, and I should have said this before, after each battle, your health is renewed. So yeah, it's kind of like a different, and I'm kind of having to get into the mindset of like, okay, I don't want to be taking hits. I want to be trying to avoid as many hits as possible. But yeah, like I said, I had my first death yesterday, which was so annoying because I was in a dungeon and I needed to get 90% of rooms scouted or cleared or whatever it is. So I'd gone through what I thought I'd gone through every room, and there was 2 left, and I knew that in the last one there was a fight. So I was like, okay, I just have to go to the next room and go inside, and then it should ping that I've finished the mission, because all of my guys were like on really low health and really low, and their stress was high. So then I got into that room and I thought, oh, that's weird. Why didn't it end the mission? Because I thought I only had 1 room left. But then I kind of zoomed out of the map and realized that there was one room I'd missed on the other side of the map, and I was like, oh god, all right, well, I have to go back. And I knew it was empty because I must have like lit a torch somewhere and it had scoured it. So I was like, well, my guys are on low health, my stress is high, I'll just walk back. But I kind of forgot that you also get like penalties for walking too much in the game, and I kept getting like the hunger kind of quest or like hunger question where it says, oh, you people are hungry, you need to feed them. So that happened, I think, 4 times from walking back from this one room to the other. And because of it, yeah, one of the guys was on low health, he was hungry, I ran out of food and he died. So I kind of was a bit like, well, maybe I should have just gone into the fight and tried to fight it, because maybe I could have healed them enough that they would survive and I would have got lucky and maybe he would have survived. But yeah, nevertheless, that was my first death. But yeah, like I said, Darkest Dungeon, I do have some experience with it, but I would really like some tips, especially the tips for which item I should use on which kind of interactable items. So for like the books and the science lab and stuff like that. Like if you know what items I should use and basically what I should be taking into dungeons with me, that would be great if you could let me know by going to Twitter or the Discord. But yeah, so that's gonna round up section 2 of the podcast. Let me know if you are an RPG fan and if you have been playing Cosmic Star Heroine. Like I said, I think it's a great game and it's going to get a very high review score. And also, yeah, if you got any tips for Darkest Dungeon, let me know by going over to switchindiefix.com/Discord or following me or messaging me on Twitter. And yeah, guys, that's going to round off the podcast for this week. I'd like to thank everyone very, very much for tuning in and consuming the podcast, whatever you do. Just a reminder that reviewing the podcast helps it out a lot. So if you do have Apple Podcasts or whichever, if whatever podcast app you're using, if it does have a review function, please do give us 5 stars, because it helps convince new people to find us, and it also helps us with rankings and stuff, so more people get to listen to it. That would be great. Recently we have put out reviews for Milo's Quest and which game did I put out yesterday? Let me look. Oh, and Kentucky Road Zero. John gave Kentucky Road Zero a 10 out of 10. So if you have any interest in that game, go check out our review by going to switchindiefix.com. There's also a review going up on tomorrow, which will be Monday for Knights and Bikes. So yeah, make sure you go to switchindiefix.com to check those out. And if you want to get in contact with me, you can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at switchindiefix, or you can join the Discord server at switchindiefix.com/Discord. So thanks a lot for listening, guys. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.